Are you getting married? Perhaps you're thinking about your big day. You might have never budgeted for anything in your life, but budgeting for your dream wedding is something that's unbelievably helpful to make a big and special and important day more manageable. So by the end of this video, you'll have a really good sense of how to budget for your dream wedding. My name is Sam, and I'm really passionate about helping women with their finances to go after the life that they want. Okay, number one, count your cash. Where is the money going to come from? It actually turns out that almost 70% of couples either pay for the entire wedding or at least in part for a pretty significant chunk of the wedding. So sit down with your fiance, talk about the savings you have in place that could be put towards your wedding. That's going to be one source of cash. Another source of cash is going to be money coming from your paycheck. So a good rule of thumb here is 10% of your after-tax take-home pay, so 10% of your paycheck that you get in your bank account could go towards your wedding fund. You're going to put this money in a high-interest savings account. I'm going to leave a link for high-interest savings accounts that I really like in the description box below. And a thing to keep in mind is the longer your engagement, the longer you have to basically save and plan for your wedding. So not ideal for everyone, but it's something to keep in mind that if you're short on savings, you can start to just put money from your paycheck towards your wedding fund and have a long drawn out engagement and enjoy being a bride-to-be for a longer period of time. The last place to get cash, right, is obviously your family. I just think it's important that you ask up front. I've seen a lot of instances where expectations are different than reality in terms of what your family or your fiance's family is able to contribute. So you just want to gather all these numbers up front and have a sense of the pot you're working with before you start shopping around for your dream dress and dream venue. So your savings and your fiance's savings, your pay and the percentage that you could take from your paycheck each month towards your wedding fund, and family help. These are going to be our sources of cash, and we start there. Number two, figure out your costs. Now, a few things with this. There's obviously things that come to mind right off the bat, but you don't need to make a list from scratch. There are fantastic wedding checklists online. I'm going to leave two that I really like in the description box below. Why do I think a checklist is so important? Well, one, I focused on the dress, like a lot of people. But the truth is there's all these weird little random things that add up in terms of expense, but you just wouldn't remember, or you might not even know because, it might be you're planning your first wedding, for example. So a checklist is really helpful. So you can start to put costs around it. A second interesting thing that I have found is that if you go through the list and prioritize what's really important to you, then you kind of know where you're willing to spend more, or at least where you're not willing to negotiate. I think the key thing here is to pick max three things that are really important to you, right? That are kind of make or break in terms of the aesthetic of your wedding, and leave more of a buffer around those. That way, you really know what you're prioritizing, and I would argue it's then easier to allocate your money into the different buckets of your wedding budget. An extra tip. So the venue and then the photographer / videographer, or if you're going to have separate ones, those are the two largest expenses. So I would really suggest getting those down, pinning those down, and that way you'll really have a sense of the biggest pieces of your budget, where they're going, and you can kind of go from there. Okay, so which financial products are we going to use on this wedding journey that we are on? Well, the first is a high interest checking or savings account. I'm a big believer in this. You're going to hear me talk about this a lot. Not all checkings and savings accounts are created equal. They all pay different interest rates. And sometimes we use them just because we've always used them. And sometimes we use them because they're convenient and we like the app. And it's personal. However, I do think it's really important to be earning a decent amount of interest on your savings. Set up an account, it can be a joint account with you and your fiance, that has a high interest rate. And this is where you're going to be putting your money as you're saving it and then spending it on various vendors and things for your wedding. Another interesting topic is credit cards. And people have lots of varying views on credit cards. I think some rules of thumb when we're thinking about a wedding is max, we're going to open one credit card. And if we do, we're going to find something with a really good, like bonus points or cash back or like basically offer. I've known many people who have opened amazing travel cards before they've started to plan and spend for their wedding. And effectively that credit card was able to fund their honeymoon. So that's really nice. Lastly, number 4 around budgeting for a wedding, staying grounded and communicating a lot with your partner. This is going to sound a little bit hippy dippy, but I just know that money is a huge stressor for a lot of people. Doesn't matter if we're talking about weddings or anything else. So thinking about the idea that a wedding is such a big, special, and important day, I think around the budgeting and the money, it's really important just to stay grounded and talk to your partner and effectively be able to compromise on priorities.